Oliver's in the building, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. You are running for Lieutenant Governor of California. What does that mean? What is that word?
So the Lieutenant Governor, a little bit different from Vice President and President. It's a separate office. It's a separate election. And what the Lieutenant Governor can do is they are the President of the State Senate, where I would be able to co-sponsor legislation. They are on the UC Board of Regents. That's where I want to divest some of our stuff away from genocide in Palestine. And then they also chair the State Commission on Economic Development. So they advise the state on where our economy needs to go.
Okay. What's your beef with the current Lieutenant Governor that you were like, they're not doing a good enough job. I think I could do better.
The current Lieutenant Governor is not running. She's doing a switch with the current California State Treasurer. So Treasurer is running for Governor, Lieutenant Governor is running for Treasurer. But I do have beef with both of them. So I have beef with
who are your
most of them.
ops? Let's take a look. What are their names?
Fiona Ma is one of the candidates. And so she's the current state treasurer.
What has she done as the current state treasurer that you don't think is appropriate? Like that you have issues with, that you're like, we need a different vision for California.
She is very moderate. She's also harassed one of her employees, and the state of California had to pay out $350,000 for her, which I don't like.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I think we need a state where working people can thrive, where housing is cheap, where healthcare is free, where immigrant families are safe. And those are not stances that Fiona or I think any other candidate in this race has taken.
It says here that she's a proven principled problem solver, which isn't really saying much about her opinions or her positions in general. She does have a lot of endorsements on here, however.
Yes.
So that usually tells me all I need to know about someone that's running for office. They care less about policy and less about what they can do for people and more about, look at all these other Democrats in positions of power that have endorsed me. So the question I have for you is, if you were to break down what some of your top line policy positions are, how would you describe them? I call it like the Zoran technique, but it's like if you were to give me 5 things that you want to be identified by, policy prescriptions that you want to be identified by, what would those policy prescriptions be?
Yeah, so I want to build a California where healthcare is free for Californians. I want to build a California where our state resources are invested in kids here, making sure kids have access to education, healthcare, housing, instead of bombing kids in Palestine. I want to build a California where immigrant families are safe and they are together with their families instead of being sent into for-profit ICE prisons. And I want to build a California where housing is for regular people and not for corporate landlords.
Okay. So that's 4. Well, you got to give me a 5th one. It's the bonus round.
And a California where white people tacos are banned.
Okay. I like that. I like that last one. So number 1, you said healthcare. This has been attempted in the state legislature before. Yeah. The current governor, Gavin Newsom, actively petitioned against it. He's also actively petitioning against another bill that Bernie Sanders is in favor of, which is a billionaire's tax, like a tax to the super wealthy in the state. What are some setbacks in the state legislature structure that you would have to overcome as the lieutenant governor?
So the lieutenant governor is president of the state senate. And so I would be able to co-sponsor legislation. But I mean, I'll be frank, all of these things that I told you about protecting immigrant families, divestment, healthcare, housing, these are not things that any one person in our state government can't do. We have a system of checks and balances, and I think we should have a system of checks and balances. But what's really important for our race is building a power structure, a legacy. That's not about my campaign, one that will keep on electing other socialists into office.
Yeah.
Right. We saw in New York with Zoran, they trained 100,000 volunteers in their campaign. And now that he's mayor, these folks are going around staffing rapid response networks, tenant unions, helping other progressives. We want to do the same thing in California so that when progressives who don't take corporate money run for office, they start 2 steps ahead instead of 2 steps behind.
So you want to build a more robust movement that will apply pressure to people who are setting hurdles against this legislative agenda that you have. Okay. So that's on the healthcare front. You just mentioned socialism. You are the first statewide candidate for any position that has been endorsed by DSA
in history
in California. Mm-hmm. What's your experience and background with the DSA?
Yeah, so I was born in Beijing. I was born in China. And China's a socialist country, and the power and the role that capitalism has in our country has always been really strange to me. It really felt really wrong. And so, I came to the U.S. when I was 7, grew up as an immigrant. There was one time where my grandma was picked up by federal agents, and that really set me on my path. And I came to the ACLU to work as a civil rights lawyer, got involved with the Democratic Socialist chapter in Kern County, which does exist in in Kern County. It's not as red as you think. And yeah, so once we launched the race, we were in close contact with some of my comrades in DSA, and eventually we got their endorsement.
That's cool. Don't read the chat, by the way. I don't think it's a smart thing to do.
I'll just look at you.
Yeah. Don't look at chat. They're asking you what your thoughts are on the white Chinese movement, which I may or may not be a part of.
I have heard about that.
You have heard?
Are you a part of the movement?
I'm some might say I am the movement.
Talk to me in Mandarin.
Which is like me and I can't. I don't. I'm getting there. This is like it's more so about vibes in general.
Can I teach you some Mandarin today?
Sure.
What do you want to know?
Dude, you're cooking yourself with this right now. I'm just letting you know. I rarely ever bring up China when I'm talking to electeds or people who are running for office, because I don't know if the broad American population, I feel like they're gonna say that about you. They're gonna be like, oh, he was born in Beijing. He's Chinese. Like, what do you have to say to people that would attack you that way?
Growing up, there were times where I was ashamed of being Chinese, and it's something that I came to terms with and really saw that the problems that I faced growing up are not my fault. It's not the fault of my community. It's not the fault of being Chinese. It's the structural racism that we have in this country. I don't mind talking and being really straightforward about my heritage in China. I think the Chinese government does a lot of things that I don't agree with, but it also does a lot of great things. You know, I grew up when I was living in China, in public housing. My grandma worked as a school teacher, and she got a really nice apartment in the middle of Beijing as a result of that. So I grew up on the 23rd story of her apartment building in this really nice government-owned public housing unit. And I wish we had that here.
Okay. I mean, I agree with you 100%. And I wish more elected representatives, people who are running for office, would be more open about this idea that public housing or socialized housing is actually not terrifying. I usually shy away from, again, using China as an example, and instead we'll use white countries as an example, because you just got to work within you got to work with the audience you have, unfortunately. And, this has been done in many other places. Vienna is obviously a great example of this. Red Vienna is 65% public housing. The Vienna model is a pretty good one to follow. Yeah. But in my experience, I think one of the biggest setbacks for public housing is this notion that Americans expect their housing prices to keep going up. This is a nest egg for older people. It's, I believe, 44% of Californians own their own homes, and that's 44% of the voter base that is infinitely more likely to vote. So I think that's one of the major drawbacks, as far as people not even being courageous enough to advance this agenda to even bring it up. How do you feel about an argument that people might present about public housing, such as that?
So when I was in law school, I spent 2 years representing tenants against their slumlords, and some of the stories from there are just heart-wrenching. I'll tell you one, which is, you know what asbestos is, right? Yeah. And at the I
love eating it. That's why I'm the way I am.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So asbestos at the microscopic level, it's these little hooks that if you breathe in, they get stuck in your lungs. So when people find asbestos in their housing units, this is free legal advice. When you find asbestos in your building, you should let your state Department of Health know about it. And, they'll make sure it's removed safely so you don't end up breathing it in. I was suing a slumlord, and during the course of the lawsuit, we found about 100 feet of asbestos in the basement. We tell the landlord, hey, there's all this asbestos. You have to be super careful with it. This could be really bad for people's health. And a few months later, we go back to that basement and everything was gone. All the asbestos had been ripped out by hand by his untrained workers. None of it done the right way. And that basement is also where that entire building does laundry. And so every single time people are in that basement doing laundry, the machines are revving up these microscopic little hooks into people's lungs. 40 people use that basement for laundry. And so I think that is our current housing system, which is a system that treats human beings as raw meat for the ravenous hunger of capitalism, where because it's cheaper to rip these asbestos out by hand, this landlord is going to do it and give a high risk of cancer to 40 people, 15 children. I don't think that's a system that any of us should be living in. And so we need housing justice. We need a housing system that regular people can afford, and not a system for corporate landlords. I mean, you mentioned that 44% or whatever of people in California are homeowners, but more and more homes are owned by corporate landlords. Yeah. Last quarter, a third of all homes in the country was purchased by investor landlords. I don't want to live in a world where all of us are living in that building in Boston, where our children have to breathe in asbestos, where we're all renting from these mega corporations, these billion-dollar private equity companies. I want to build a country, a California, where everyone can have access to cheap, good quality, affordable housing, like my grandma had.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have another question about housing in particular. What do you think are some of the major setbacks as far as advancing a comprehensive housing agenda in the state of California? Because Californians are actually much more woke on housing when they go out and vote than our legislators are, unfortunately.
That's true. Yeah.
And we vote for ballot measures. I myself have voted for plenty of them at this point, where we add additional mansion taxes and things like that, with the hopes that that money will then go to initiatives that will build more affordable housing or even shelters, which is not a real solution to the problem, but at least it's a Band-Aid. And from my experience, I feel like there's a lot of institutional hurdles where a lot of close associates with people in positions of power in California state turn around and refuse to follow along with the agenda of the people, things that people want. Yeah. How do you plan on addressing that problem as the lieutenant governor?
I think that's part of a broader problem we have in our politics, which is anytime the government is tasked with doing something, it typically doesn't get done well, except when it's brutalizing our communities like ICE is doing, which maybe they're not doing well either. But one big thing for me is getting corruption out of our politics, because I think the Democratic Party, their entire pitch to voters is government is going to solve your problems. But when your politics is so corrupt and your party is so corrupt that any policy that you end up implementing, it's so watered down. And in fact, they're probably meant to benefit the people who gave you campaign contributions, and you can't deliver for people. That is why you keep losing, right? We can point to the high-speed rail. We can point to, I'll meet Republicans who say, I want people to have affordable housing, healthcare, and education, but I don't trust our government to get it done. Mm-hmm. And I feel the same way. I totally see where they're coming from with the corruption in our government. And so I think to address all of these issues, it's not just about the corporate landlords. It's not just about building more housing, right? It's not just about shutting down these for-profit ICE prisons. It's not just about divesting from Israel. All of these issues are connected with the corruption in our politics, and we need to build a new system where candidates who actually help people, who want to serve the people, can win, take office, and build a California that works for everybody.
What's your approach to taxing the rich?
I think we should tax the billionaires until they are not billionaires.
Okay. I agree with you. Hopefully, one day. We were talking about the actions against ICE in general and making this a safer place for our migrant neighbors. What are some initiatives that you foresee you could potentially push for as the leader of the Senate?
Yeah, so I'm a civil rights lawyer. I am often in these immigration detention centers. And so much of the reason these things are happening is because ICE is a money laundering scheme. I'll meet people inside, right, who, I'll tell you a story. So I work in Bakersfield in the Central Valley with farm workers. And the very first immigration raid in the entire country under Trump was in Bakersfield. They came more than a year ago in January, and they rounded up hundreds of farm workers. That morning, I'm a volunteer with the Rapid Response Network. That morning, we get a call. And they say there's this little girl in a field by herself. And so we're like, that's weird. Why is she in a car in the field by herself? So we sent a team out to investigate. Her dad had been driving her to work, and ICE saw that he had brown skin, pulled him over and put him into one of these detention centers. In this detention center, the way he stays in touch with his family is he makes phone calls, and they charge him $5 per phone call. And the way he makes those $5 is he works. And for a full day of work, they pay him $1. So him and every single person in there are working for $1 a day to stay in touch with their families, to buy food, to buy hygiene products. And that's so much of why these raids are happening. Because first of all, these people work. And second of all, these detention centers charge a lot of taxpayer money. They're run by for-profit prison companies. So I think what California needs to do, first of all, is shut down these for-profit detention centers so that people are not being brutalized for some for-profit company. I think we also need to hold ICE agents accountable when they break the law, like shooting people, like assaulting people, like trespassing. And I also think our volunteer rapid response networks are doing a lot of great work protecting people across the state. And everyone I know who's doing that is a volunteer. And the state of California really needs to step up to help them do what they're doing.
So you were a civil rights lawyer before this. What other experiences have you had, and why did you choose to run for lieutenant governor? Why not anything else?
Yeah. I've always been a community organizer. For 10 years, I ran a nonprofit organization that trains Asian youth to fight for racial justice. And then I did eviction defense. I organized for housing justice. So I would organize tenants unions and rent strikes. And then I came to the ACLU to do immigrant rights. What really excites me is using my legal skills to build power. I never want to be the kind of attorney who helicopters into a community and just says, I'm a hero, I'm here to save things. And then I leave and make things worse. I always want to use my legal skills to build power. And for a long time, that was the ACLU, and that was very attractive to me. But with these ICE raids, so when the raids began in California, we file our lawsuits and we actually win. So in April, we got an injunction in federal court ordering the Trump administration to stop with the immigration raids in the Central Valley. And in July, we won a similar victory protecting Southern California. But what was really noticeable to me was the Trump administration didn't care. They kept the raids going. For them, an order from a judge was just like a sheet of paper. And it really showed me that what the courts can do is so limited when it comes to protecting us, and California needs to step up. And so that's why I'm running.
What are some legal mechanisms of defense that your background as a civil rights attorney allows you to expand on that you could potentially pursue? Because like we're talking about building a consensus, right? There are gonna be a lot of people in the state that will oppose your agenda, oppose your vision. Let's say you build this consensus and you have people pressuring their own state legislatures, for example. What are some of the ways in which you could push back against the Trump administration at a time when, let's say, they want to occupy the streets of Los Angeles, as they have done so to Minneapolis?
For me, the law and politics are not the end goal. They are always an avenue to build power. So yes, I am an attorney. I do have that experience. I do think California should be doing more in the courts to fight back against Trump, but that is not how we're going to change things structurally. Because when you win in the court system, it can just be reversed like that. I mean, we saw with Roe versus Wade. And even when you win and you pass a law, it could just be repealed. Obamacare is, always being put on the chopping block, and this year lost a lot of its funding. So I think the kind of victory that really sticks is changing people's hearts and minds. And so, yes, I think California should file more lawsuits. I think we need to pass more laws, but I really want to use my position and my campaign and my role as lieutenant governor to change people's hearts and minds and change the way people think about capitalism, change the way people feel about immigrants, change the way people feel about our politics so that we have actually long-term structural change. And it's not just me, right? It's building into a movement that so many people and so many organizations have worked on for so long.
Let's talk about how you plan to become lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
I don't know what the internal polling looks like. I'll be honest, the lieutenant governor's race is not one that I was paying close attention to in the state of California. Many people don't even know that there is a separate race for a lieutenant governor as opposed to the governor.
People love asking us who our running mate is, and we don't have one.
Yeah. And there probably would be friction as well between the lieutenant governor and the governor. Has that happened in California at times?
We've had a Democrat as governor and a Republican as lieutenant governor. And California's constitution has it so when the governor leaves the state, the lieutenant governor becomes the acting governor. And so this Republican would sign legislation and appoint judges and do all sorts of stuff. So there has been tension.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what's your plan of attack for winning the election?
Yeah, good question. Maybe I should get my finance director or campaign manager here. No, so this past week we had two really good breakthroughs. Number one, we got the California DSA endorsement statewide. First time in history they've endorsed somebody. First time since Bernie Sanders in 2020 that they've endorsed somebody. First time in history they've endorsed somebody for statewide office, which we're really happy about. And then this past weekend we were up in San Francisco for the California Democratic Party convention. And, there are some career politicians in this race with decades of time in politics. And so we really thought they would endorse one of these corporate Democrats who have been in politics for so long.
Yeah.
And they actually decided not to endorse anybody.
Why do you think that's the case?
I think the hold that these corporate Democrats have over the party has really weakened in the last few years, especially after 2023, 2024 with Palestine. And so they voted not to endorse anybody. For us, that means the race is wide open. And when it comes to grassroots support, we are bigger than every other campaign in this race combined. We have thousands of volunteers registered with the campaign. On social media, we're doing way better than everybody else combined. And so our plan is really to build, kind of like Zoran did in New York City, a very grassroots campaign, knocking on doors, speaking to people, building power in local communities. We're training a lot of our volunteers to be campaign captains, and these are folks that we specially train and resource to represent us in their communities. It's a very grassroots model, but I think it's the kind of long-term organizing and power building that we need to change the state.
What's the state Democratic Party's outlook on someone like yourself, if you can be honest about it?
It's nuanced. I mean, there's the traditional power structures don't like us, but there is a surprising amount of people who are in the power structure who are open to things. What I find throughout this process that is most surprising is sometimes we're shy about talking about Palestine, because we know the party's role and complicity. And so whenever we talk to some of these party people, it'll kind of be like, we'll drop a hint, and then they drop a hint, and then we drop a hint, and then it comes out we're both from the river to the sea, Palestine should be free. And they say, hey, you should have just led with that. So that's a really big surprise. I can't condemn like the entire party in one breath.
That was surprising to me too when I went to the DNC and how many people were like actually fans. That was like a shock to me.
Yeah.
I would have expected them to be much more hostile. I mean, they have been a lot more hostile since then, because Kamala Harris lost, and they're just like actively looking to shift the blame on whoever they can. But okay, so we got Fiona Ma, that's like your main op here. That's like the top dog, I guess, in the race. Is that, would you say?
I would say there's no top dog. No one got the Democratic Party endorsement.
True. But like, there's always someone that you're like,
She's the media's top dog.
She's the media's top dog. And then the other candidates are David Fennell, Josh Friday, Brian Jones, Janelle Kelman, Tim Myers, and Michael Tubbs. I don't know anything about any of these people. Like, this is you need to walk me through what these guys are about a little bit. This guy's a cool hat.
I don't have a cool hat.
Yeah, he's got you on that one, I think.
I know.
And he's from St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, that's interesting. St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah.
But got a degree from the Beijing Language Institute.
Hey, we're cousins.
You think he could out China Mog you? You think he could China Mog you?
We'll see how much Mandarin he speaks.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. That's so California that the Republican is from the Beijing Language Institute. You got Josh Friday, Office Holder, California Volunteers Chief Service Officer.
Yeah. I actually met him 2 weeks ago. He was very nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got Brian Jones, Republican, member of the California State Senate, representing District 40, and his term is supposed to end. He's running for election, currently is the State Senate Minority Leader. I feel like I can't speak for the lieutenant governor position, but like the gubernatorial race is oftentimes not very ideological. Like, people will go after specific candidates, like, and what their policies are. The California gubernatorial race right now is, it's a very crowded field.
Do you have a favorite?
No, I don't. I will be interviewing Tom Steyer, I believe this week or next, I think this week though. And I'm very interested to hear what he has to tell me about being a billionaire who is also one of the more woke candidates. There's also Butch Ware, I believe, is also going, and Ramsey Robinson, who is running as a socialist, I think. But as far as who is favored in the race, in the California gubernatorial race, I think it's Eric Swalwell, right? I think he's polling the highest.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of Eric Swalwell.
Me either.
But also, not to take it there, but he's probably more pro-China than you are.
What has he said?
It's a joke. He's been caught with the Chinese honeypot. You didn't know that?
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's... Anyway, what do you think about the governor's race? Oh, Katie Porter's running too, yeah.
Katie Porter's running. There are many options. There are a lot of people I don't like. There are some people I like. And I'll just drop that we are talking to some folks about working together. Okay. But it's not announced yet, so keep tuned.
All right. That's interesting. How do we force eminent domain and finally make high-speed rail a reality in California?
I think we need to get a lot of that corruption out, because here's what the California Party, Democratic Party really, and the California government as a whole does, is they write a bunch of regulations, make things really complicated. And then anytime government wants to do something, things are so complicated that they can give checks to the people who are their donors and people don't notice, right? So it's like they're muddying the waters, so you can't really figure out what's going on. So we need to get corruption out of politics, because it's not just the high-speed rail. It's for anything that people want to do, whether it be getting an attorney to go through the legal system or divestment from genocide in Palestine. Like, government is so incapable by design. So we got to change that.
I'm asking you more like, how do you plan on playing hardball and using the office? Because I understand that, like, you're going to utilize the masses to the best of your ability to apply pressure, or pressure is a necessity. But there is like an internal machination in the system itself where you can play hardball with contractors. You can work with I guess there's like a comptroller, right, in the state as well, just like there is one in Los Angeles. You have some levers of power at your disposal. Do you have a comprehensive agenda on how you would utilize this position to basically force out some of the more corrupt people that have benefited from the current system? You can also not have an answer for it right now. It's all right. This is not like a very easy question to ask someone, so I understand that.
I think, my background is the legal system, and I know the legal system takes a long time, right? We could get a laws through that says, hey, you have to build the high-speed rail by 2030, and here's all the money you need for it. And different interest groups can file laws and delay that by 15 years. So I wish there were I could promise you, hey, I'm going to do this thing and the high-speed rail will be done by 2030. Mm-hmm. But I think it really takes a complete restructuring of our system.
Okay, but what have you thought about lying and being like, yeah, I'm going to get it done by, you could be like, I'm Chinese. What do you know about China? High-speed rail, 50,000 kilometers.
China would be able to do that in a year, 6 months.
Like you could do like a competitive angle. You could be like, why are these guys stealing our lunch money? Like, they're cooking us on the high-speed rail approach. Like, no more. California is the 5th largest economy on the planet. That's a lot of money. We got a lot of money at our disposal. We're no longer letting China defeat us in the home ownership rates. We're no longer letting China defeat us on high-speed rail. And we're no longer letting China defeat us on education, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
You should join our comms team.
Yeah, I don't think people care about that too much. They would rather live in copium and think like everything is great here. But I'm just thinking of things as a Californian voter and a taxpayer.
Yeah.
How are you going to punish the internet service providers? Let's get down to the real reason why I brought you here.
Do you have beef with your what beef do you have?
Who doesn't have beef with their internet service
I want to know your beef.
I have Spectrum, and unfortunately, all of the ISPs in this country are there's a oligopoly in virtually every market, and in most markets, it's a monopoly. And for that reason, they have, in spite of the subsidies that they've gotten, the tax breaks they've gotten to the tunes of tens of billions of dollars since the 90s, refused to offer additional infrastructure improvements that they said they would in exchange for those tens of billions of dollars in subsidies and tax cuts. I don't have fiber in this neighborhood. And for me to get fiber in this neighborhood, I would have to literally pay for them to break the concrete and lay down the fiber lines. It would be $100,000 just for me up front to pay for a fiber line to be connected to my home. $100,000, and then on top of that, $5,000 a month.
$5,000 a month?
After that.
Wow.
To get fiber. That's insane.
Guys, you got to donate to the stream.
No, it's not happening regardless. That's on principle. I refuse to do it.
Okay.
Because that's insane. Yeah. They should do it, right? And because there is no alternative, there's no actual like competitor that has fiber.
Yeah.
Because the same applies to the competition as well. There's only two that I can work with, AT&T or Spectrum, neither of which offer fiber, even though there are fiber lines around. How do we get the municipal internet? Similar to like the Tennessee Valley Authority, Chattanooga has one of the best internet service providers in the nation.
Yeah.
Have you thought about public utilities at all?
Yes. So I'm a huge fan of making these things public because, when we turn on the water, right, we typically, that's less and less the case, but we typically expect it to be drinkable, and we expect it to be pretty affordable. Same thing with the power. And these things exist because we have invested in the infrastructure. Government has invested in the infrastructure. With the water, it's the reservoirs and, the dams and all of these things. And with power, it's, our power grid and the different renewable energies and non-renewable energies that we have in this state. I think we need the same thing for housing, for example, and I think we should have the same thing for utilities. Things should not only be provided because a company can make money from that. Because what that does is, first of all, a lot of people don't get access to that. And number two, when you do get access to it, it's really because they're trying to nickel and dime you and trying to dare you to sue them, which you're going to have a really hard time doing as a single person. And so I think the government really has to step in and provide, in some cases, a public option. In other cases, I think the government should just provide that thing like healthcare.
You're going to win over the gamers with that one.
The healthcare or the internet?
No, not healthcare.
Gamers don't want healthcare.
Good, but public broadband, public fiber, that's an easy one.
People are gonna lose all their excuse.
Yeah.
With the lag.
Speaking of utilities, PG&E is a behemoth in this state, and they have also time and time again refused to update their infrastructure, and because their infrastructure is not hardened enough to deal with the anthropogenic climate change brought about wildfires and things of that nature. There are wildfires in the state. They're oftentimes very deadly. How do we tackle PG&E in this state?
Yeah, I have a friend who worked at PG&E after college, and every time we talked to him, he would say, "Probably going to lose my job soon because we are completely bankrupt." Mm-hmm. He actually worked there for like 2 years. But what we've done with PG&E is we've carved out a swath of California for them and said, you get to have a monopoly over this area. And then they're not gonna provide you good service. They're not gonna make it fire safe because they have a monopoly and they're too big for you to actually hold them accountable. They've burned down so much of California. They've been bankrupt for almost a decade now, and they're still in business because there's no alternative to them. And so what we need to do is to do an alternative to PG&E, put them out of business as they should be, and actually provide good quality power that doesn't burn the state down.
So, you could also overtake them, I guess. Like the state has that capacity, fairly certain. There would be a lot of legal hurdles in front of that, but who knows? Okay, so you're in favor of taking out PG&E from continuously burning down the state every year.
I don't like the state burning down.
Yeah, I like that. As far as housing initiatives goes, let's talk a little bit more about that. So you've talked about corruption and people not having a lot of trust in the state, not having a lot of trust in the government. How do you feel like you could fix the housing crisis in the state of California, which is leading to a lot of homelessness here?
Yeah, it's so much more than just homelessness because so many people are paying so much of their income on housing. You're not able to invest in your local communities. You're not spending it at your local small businesses. So it's really holding back our entire state. There's 3 things that we really want to do. The first is, of course, building more, which I do think we need to do, but it cannot be the kind of building that the real estate developers want, which is luxury condos that take up the space of 5 affordable units. Because when you let them have their way, that actually decreases the amount of space we have for affordable housing. So I think we need to build more, but it has to be affordable. Number 2, we need to protect tenants better because, I've represented these folks, and having good legal protection for tenants will do so much to addressing our state's housing crisis and the amount of unhoused people we have in our state. And lastly, which is something that I think really gets under talked about, is who actually owns the housing, because too much of the housing in our state is owned by these corporate landlords, these investor landlords. And of course, regular people, young people, working families are never going to be able to compete against a billion-dollar private equity company when it comes to buying a home. And so these companies are buying up entire neighborhoods, outbidding regular people, and then charging them whatever they want on rent. And that is such a core component of our housing crisis. And so what we want to do, I wish we could just say ban the corporate landlords, and that's what I want to do. But legally, when you do something like that, you have to compensate them for that property. And so I think what California should go about doing, that my campaign is proposing, is a property tax penalty for homes that are owned by these corporate landlords, and use the proceeds of that tax to help first-time home buyers buy homes.
Okay. That's one aspect of it, but like the bubble that has developed around housing, it needs to, at some point, I don't want to say pop, but it kind of does need to, the housing market needs to deflate a little bit. One of the only effective ways of doing that is either creating a market competitor in the hands of the state, or is by, I guess, opening up alternatives in terms of new developments. Many of the new developments, however, unfortunately, are luxury condominiums and things of that nature that aren't affordable alternatives, and that sometimes actually ends up increasing the existing of the available inventory of housing and their prices as well, because now you're in a more expensive real estate market because there's a nice luxury condominium right there. What is your solution as far as like increasing the amount of availability for housing?
Well, for housing, I think we need to build more, right? So there was a California law that recently passed that got watered down quite a bit, that kind of deregulates a lot of building around public transportation centers. I think we should have that statewide. But on your earlier point about this bubble, I think there's a third alternative, right? You mentioned there's two ways to pop the bubble. And I think there is another way where you pop the bubble for corporate landlords and you leave everybody else alone. Because right now, a lot of that bubble is there because of this artificial demand for housing, which is not by people who actually want to live in them, but by these giant investment companies that want to invest and make money. And so by targeting the corporate landlords who own that, you can kind of pop the bubble of the corporate landlords, leave the people who, invested their whole lives and who saved up to buy their homes, leave them alone, target the corporate landlords and the housing they own, pop that bubble, make those stock, which is hundreds of thousands of homes in California, affordable for people. Everybody else gets left alone.
What do you think about a land tax or a vacancy tax?
I support a vacancy tax.
What about Airbnb?
I think they should probably be banned, but I want to do more research on that.
Okay. All right. That's cool. Is there any way to stop property owners from blocking out renters by impossible credit checks legally? They do credit checks before you rent. On properties. Yes. And the chatter is saying, like, is there a way to force landlords not to do credit checks before you go to rent a property? There are alternative ways of doing a check to make sure that you're like going to be a responsible renter. I believe like they can look at your income, for example.
Yeah.
Instead of doing a credit check.
I'll just say, credit checks, they make access to housing really hard for people who are marginalized backgrounds, typically Black and brown people. I represented this tenant who is Black, his family's Black, and we were negotiating a move out agreement for him where he gets a chunk of money from the landlord and he moves out and gets a new apartment. And I thought, okay, like we'll give him, he's getting a lot of money. We'll give him like 3 months in the agreement and he should be able to find a new place because he has the money for a security deposit and all this stuff, right? And my supervisor was like, no, he's going to need way more than 3 months. And we actually ended up writing 9 months into his agreement and he used up the full 9 months because there's so much discrimination and based on race, based on the fact that he's on a housing voucher, based on his credit score, that it was super tough for him and his family.
Yeah. Last question I have for you, and thank you so much for taking the time out and coming on the broadcast. What can my community do for you? Like, what are you? What are some areas of need for you right now on your campaign?
There's two really good ways folks can help. The first is our volunteers. We have trained thousands of volunteers with this campaign, and we're really passionate about training people not to tell my story and not to elevate this campaign, but training them to build power. And so our trainings are on things like your rights against ICE, how to organize your community, how to tell stories. Our goal really is to leave behind a legacy of thousands of people who can keep on fighting for the kind of change that we need in this state. So if you either live in California or don't live in California, there are so many ways for you to get involved. Especially we need campaign captains, who are the people that we give a specific community ownership over. And their job is to represent us in that community. So that's one way. Number two is fundraising. And we are completely grassroots funded. We're not taking any money from corporations. And we've fundraised quite a bit, hundreds of thousands of dollars from regular people. But on the other side, there's the housing lobby, there's the Israeli lobby, there's, all of these developers and the for-profit prisons. And so we do need more resources to fight back. What makes our spending so different is we're not hiring an army of consultants the way that most campaigns do, the way that Kamala wasted $1 billion on. Our resources all gets invested back into the community, training our volunteers, the thousands of volunteers we have on the campaign. And so if a grassroots donation feels right for you, then that'll really help us be loud in fighting for justice.
But you're still going to get TV ads, right?
I don't think we need to.
Okay.
On social media, we're getting millions of views every single week, and TV ads are exceptionally expensive, especially because all the governor candidates are going to be spending in that same market.
I don't know. Maybe it's different for the lieutenant governor race. Usually, maybe there's like not as much attention to it as there is for the gubernatorial race and all these other races that are happening. But you have internal pollsters, like you have people that you're paying for polling.
We haven't done any polling. No.
Okay. Are there polls out there of this race at all?
There hasn't been any public polls, or not public, like publicly funded polls. It's all polls that individual candidates pay for, and it's always whoever paid for the poll shows them leading. We don't really care about that. We just have our heads down doing the work, and we see a ton of grassroots enthusiasm. I anticipate maybe towards the end of the race we might do a poll. But right now, we want to use our resources, our time, and our energy training our community.
They're saying there have been several polls currently at 10% to 10% split. Do you have any of them we can look at?
Yeah. So I think I know the polls you're talking about. Those are polls that were paid by other campaigns, and it's whoever paid for the polls, it shows them in the lead at about 10%.
No, of course. What about a media strategy beyond social media? Because you're very good at social media.
Thank you.
Your campaign's done a great job on social media. Do you guys have a media strategy to reach out to local papers? Have you sought out other endorsements from unions and things of that nature?
Yeah. So earlier this month, we got the endorsement of the United Auto Workers, which represent the 50,000 grad student workers on our UCs. And so we're super excited for that. We're building out our endorsements. We're talking to different sorts of media. Yeah. I mean, at the core of our campaign, it's a grassroots organizing. That's my background as a candidate. And that's what I think we need to do.
I mean, I will tell you, I worked with a lot of people and still continue to work with a lot of campaigns. The ones that are the most successful do still, at the end of the day, lean into more traditional methods as well. Zoran has that background as well. Had the DSA backing, had the grassroots mobilization, but he also did work with a firm that is now getting even more and more popular. I forget their call. I think it's called Fight Agency.
Fight Media. Or
Fight Media. Yeah. So there is definitely utility in having a campaign that is focusing on both. Not to tell you what to do. Obviously, you're going to do what you're going to do, but there's definitely still utility in playing the game a little bit.
So we Fight Agency or Fight Media or whatever, they are a video production or like communications firm, and we do have a production company that we work with who do some of our videos. So we do that. The kind of campaign consultants that I don't like are the people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars polling the public to craft messages for their candidates. And ends up what we get is the Democratic Party, which is like, don't say shit about Palestine, don't support universal health care, don't do all of these things, just be moderate.
No, you have that, which is good. That's what I always urge people to do, which is to have moral convictions, to not be afraid to lead on issues, even if you feel like that might be unpopular. At the end of the day, if you have an earnest message, that will come across. People are not stupid. You don't have to treat them like they're stupid. But people are also kind of stupid, and you have to bludgeon them in the head with your message. And I think there's utility in working with someone to make sure that your message reaches far and wide and gets in front of people, and you do as much media as possible as well.
Yeah.
So, but thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
OliverMah2026.com to find out more about the campaign, to see how you can join forces with Oliver here. If you liked what he had to say, I certainly did. So thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. I hope next time we talk, you know some Mandarin.
Yeah. Inshallah. Yeah.
Thanks, Hasan.
All right. Thank you. Nice to meet you.